Hey everyone, this is Dr. Eric Fields, a specialist in gambling addiction, trained as a psychologist, and now offering a very intensive support type of group to parents and loved ones of those who are struggling with compulsive gambling. Now, I wanted to make sure that my group program that I created is addressing each and every possible need of parents and loved ones. And so, of course, my first stop was to ChatGPT. I wanted to look up and research what are the most common reasons that parents and loved ones of those struggling with gambling addiction seek out help. And so I found eight. And I am happy to report that my program absolutely checks every single box. So let's go through these and see how many of these you believe you really need some guidance and support with. Okay, the first one, definitely no surprise to me. Parents and loved ones of those struggling with compulsive gambling want to understand gambling addiction. Okay, they want to learn about what causes it and why their loved one continues with this self-sabotaging behavior, even though it has wreaked havoc on their life or is starting to, or at the very least is causing all sorts of problems. Okay. Now, some parents also want guidance as to how to recognize the signs and symptoms of gambling addiction. But I'm thinking that you probably already know that there's a serious issue if you're watching this video and that you have already decided you need help. Okay, the second one, emotional support. For you, of course, your son, daughter, spouse, partner may very well need emotional support too, but if you don't get your emotional support, you are not going to be able to help them. If you're not in a good place emotionally, you're not going to be able to carry out the skills and strategies that I teach in my program to really open the lines of communication and ultimately get them to seek out help. So my program absolutely checks this box. I teach parents and partners coping strategies for dealing with a lot of the different kinds of emotions that they struggle with. And because it is a group-based program, you also get a lot of support from the other parents and partners in the program. The third thing, setting boundaries. This is so important for parents and partners to learn because I feel like if you do an internet search of the different kinds of approaches to take, there's really this dichotomy, right? It's either, you know, enabling them and hoping that they eventually get to a point where they just want to stop this behavior, or the tough love approach, right? Which is just cutting them off completely and separating from them physically and emotionally. And so, first off, I'll say that neither of these approaches are good, and that there is a third middle approach. And by middle, I mean it's right in between these two, You're not enabling them, but you're not cutting them off, but you're setting boundaries. Okay. It's not draining your bank account and constantly, you know, taking care of their debt. Okay. And it's definitely not cutting them off emotionally and not speaking to them until they stop. Because either of those approaches will create so much anxiety and fear in you, right? Like in the first approach, if you're constantly bailing them out, there's this anxiety about like, when is this ever going to stop? Like, how much money is this going to cost me until this is over? That's so anxiety provoking, okay? And then in the second approach, the anxiety is, oh my God, what might happen to them now that I've cut them off? Are they going to wind up in jail? Are they going to do something extreme? Are they going to be destitute? What's going to happen? So there is absolutely appropriate boundaries to set where you're emotionally supporting them and maybe financially supporting them to some degree, but more importantly, you're governing their finances and putting certain controls in place, especially so that your financial resources aren't drained. There's a way to do that. And so that brings us to the fourth one, which is financial management. How do you set up the financial boundaries or that financial oversight and control? And I teach parents how to do that so that, and partners, so that they feel more in control of their financial situation and their loved ones' financial situation so that they don't get so out of control. If there's no means, if there's no opportunity, that is really going to thwart your loved one's compulsive gambling behavior. I mean, if you're shutting off the money faucet, then it's absolutely going to slow down the behavior, if not stop it altogether. Communication skills. This is a huge piece of my program, or part of my program, rather. You need to learn effective communication strategies so that your loved one wants to open up to you and talk to you about their compulsive gambling struggles, and your loved one feels like you understand them and are supporting them. Um, and again, not supporting them financially, but supporting them emotionally. And that's what you need to do, right? If you cut them off and say you do the tough love approach, there's no emotional support in that approach. And what's the chances that they're going to want to work with you and try to figure this out and do something about it? So communication skills, that is the way you support them. And I teach that in depth in my program. Some other things that came up: access to resources. Let's say your loved one wants to get help. My program is all built around getting them motivated to do something about their problem. And so when they're finally motivated, the last thing you want is to be at a loss for you know, how to help them and what the next steps for them should be, right? So you want a professional like myself to be able to go over all the various resources and ways that they can get help. So that's another big check in the box in my program. Self-care, this goes back to number two, emotional support. You need to know how to deal with your emotions, but in a very general way, you need to learn how to take care of yourself, because, right now you're going through a really grueling time in your life. This is probably one of the most difficult things you've ever dealt with. And so your self-care needs to be a priority. You're not going to be able to help anybody if you're not taking care of yourself and able to deal with your emotions in a healthy way, right? So 2 and 7, absolutely, I cover in my program. And number 8, I call this the need for a cheerleader. You need somebody on your side that's positively reinforcing all your positive steps towards helping your loved one, towards taking care of yourself. You need somebody there cheerleading you on and being able to be a real source of inspiration and motivation for you so that you stay in this fight, because it is a fight, not a fight with your loved one, a fight with their addiction. So this is a big part of my program as well, giving you that hope and encouragement that all the strategies I teach are backed by research. They absolutely work. Of course, there's no guarantee, but I can tell you by doing my program, you stand such a good chance of getting your loved one the help they need. This is Dr. Eric Fields. If you are interested in my program, please reach out to me by either email, following me, and sending me a message on Facebook, checking out my website, and then filling out the contact form there, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, I hope to hear from you. You can get the help you need to help your loved one.